And we're right here in the strong room. This is election headquarters. And we're here again to bring you what exactly people have been talking about on social media as far as your comments are concerned. And Noella, Oyemizu.
Impossible. Generally, that is what is trending
Yep.
on social media. Everywhere stew, everywhere
Mm.
green,
Mm.
green waves everywhere. And so, yeah, if you meet somebody and the person is an NDC supporter, you
Yeah.
probably just say, "Oh yeah, Mizzou,"
Yeah.
yeah.
Oyemizu.
And this even
So
I understand the Soloku is on, right?
there's going to be a lot to dance to. But the EC has spoken. So a while ago, a lot of people were expecting that the
Mm-hmm.
EC was going to have a press conference where she would declare the elections. But unfortunately, it didn't happen the way many of you expected her to say. And so we still have some more time to do in terms of declaring officially from the EC who is the president of the Republic of Ghana. And we're going to be here, like we said, to bring you all the updates until finally the EC declares. Now,
And in fact, rightly so, we're going to start with a presser by the Electoral Commission's commissioner, where she talks about the fact that the reason why most of the collated results have delayed is because of the attacks
yeah,
on, EC
and they are
personalities
following
and
processes
right.
because it is something that they have to go through as much as the other presidential candidates, the parties have come out to say, oh, we have so and so amount of years or whatever, and based on that, this is where we stand. They have a process they have to follow throughout. So if it's going to take 72 hours, they're going to stick to it.
But speaking of the attacks, though, I'm sure you've heard about
Yep.
that electoral commission's officer involved in the
The one who's made
Damango
to fear
chaos.
dead, yeah.
Unfortunately, we're learning that he has passed, right? And that's really, really sad. Totally needless.
Yeah, we didn't
It
have to
didn't
get
have to
here.
happen.
Yeah.
It's really,
Yeah,
really
we didn't have
sad.
to get here.
But
And we,
anyway,
we've preached against this issue of elections and people losing their lives. 4 years ago, we had a similar situation. We've not been able to even deal with that already. And look at what we're experiencing now. Nobody is supposed to lose their lives because of elections, and it's bad.
so
Very
basically,
bad.
on the HQ Interactive, what we're doing is we're going to gauge people's reaction on social media and share them with you in real time. And so let's see how people are reacting to the news about that EC presser on social media. I want to help us with some of the
So
comments.
Apostle Alex Salom says she can keep the results. We already know both presidential and parliamentary. Harry Sulamino says that is the reality. We need to support the process, not to frustrate it. Very sad for a young democracy like Ghana. Perpetrators of this horrible acts must be punished. And Tiwa Susan says that allow her some time. I feel her pain. It is not easy to go through all the 5 stages of the grieving process. And Babazi says, Tiwa Susan, not easy, my sister. Okay. Babazi comes back and says, the disposition is glaring. Cheer up, madam. If I have the power, I would have allowed you to continue as the chairperson. Unfortunately, you don't
Well,
have that
that is
power.
also another conversation. Amidst the win by, or for the NDC, how possible is it that Jean Mensa will still keep her job? Is it even possible?
It looks more impossible than possible. It is something we have experienced. After Jan, we've seen this come and say go and let another person come to take place of that position. Unfortunately, it has not helped. To a large extent, it's not helped. I'm hoping that whoever takes over will be able to say, okay, you know what? Let's let this person be
I
here
agree
and
with you
continue to do
because
the job
if you
because
ask
really,
me, I think it defeats the notion that the EC is an independent institution
there
because
has
if
been
really
concerns with
it's
regards to that.
independent,
Yeah.
why should you change,
Yeah,
the
there have been
commissioners,
serious concerns with that. You know, that's the kind of democracy that we have, until we have a national agenda, a constitution reform review, which would say that, okay, if this person takes over, the person is supposed to maintain A, B, C, D. We're still going to have these issues coming up because everybody wants to have someone from their camp, unfortunately, and as long as that continues, we're going to be experiencing this.
Well said. Well, you want to continue with some of the messages,
Kwame
more of them?
K says soon the soldiers who follow her around will be no more there. You will soon enter exile. Okay, I won't mention the rest of the messages over there. Madam, if you can't clean it, just use the street one like that. Which one is the street one, by the way?
I don't know.
That is the one that we have seen so far.
Probably. Don't ask me.
That's street figures. Okay. Davis Nabla says she should cook
Don't
the
read
papers
this.
and eat. I'm sure
That's
our
mean.
viewers don't see that as well. Abdullah Ahmed says her work shall be over soon. You see what we're talking about right now?
Yeah.
People want her work to be
Yeah.
over already. Gilbert Kofi says her last duty. There you go. Amelia Kodia says this lady is becoming a nuisance.
Anyway, well, enough of that. But also, it's also instructive to note that, earlier when we came on, we talked about the talk about Baumia conceding too early, and the debate around it as to whether it was a strategy or honorable. Well, the UK.
Some people believe so, that it's honorable. I mean, people are still commenting and praising him for that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the UK's High Commissioner, Madam Harriet Thompson,
spoke about
has,
that as well.
commended
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
He says it shows how patriotic he is.
But
Now,
is that what the party wanted? Anyway.
we're still speaking of whether that is what the party wants. Napo's silence has been definite.
I think that, like I mentioned earlier, he would have taken the glory.
I mean, the last time he posted on social media was a day ago. And let me prove that. You can go ahead while I, get through to his.
I think that maybe it's a personal decision, like I said earlier. Unfortunately, there are too many meanings that you can read in this, because if it was a victory speech, I'm sure he would have been there. He's been part of the process from day one. So if we've taken a decision, or is it that he didn't agree that we should come out at this point?
If you are the running mate of somebody, it means you're in through thick and thin.
Yeah, but maybe he disagreed with them going out as early as that.
That was supposed to be your boss, right?
He's the.
I don't think.
So you mean he's the mate? So he didn't have to.
Okay, it's okay. it can pass.
Argue with the boss.
So yeah, when you go on Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh's page, which I am on now,
nothing has been said.
You'll realize
the last
last post he made was when he, in fact, he posted this in real time in like less than 5 minutes, because I was following. Less than 5 minutes, he had this post up.
I just had my vote at the Apejafiam polling station in Menchia South.
Yeah.
Together with my beautiful wife, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
lovely pictures. Very vice presidential, if you ask me.
No, but many of them have deactivated your accounts. Miracles hasn't yet, because I still see what he has posted with regards to the concession. And so I am thinking that those who don't have the balls to, take the trolls will definitely be deactivating the accounts, or better still, not say anything at all.
Right.
So
I mean, since you mentioned Miracles, let's go on
he
his page.
hasn't deactivated yet.
Okay, so he posted this 5 hours ago. Congratulations, President-elect. His Excellency John Mahama. Let's go through some of the comments, shall we?
They're not pleasant, but we'll try and see how
Go ahead.
See that. Right. Duasari says Ghanaians will regret of their decision for choosing Mahama over Baumia. NDC cannot continue with the free education and the massive road constructions in Ghana. Frank J says that, and you recalled that JDM never did his honorable thing when he lost 4 years ago. Thank you, DNB, for showing
this comment also proves what we were discussing earlier, that people thought, you know what, you don't give up early like that. We fight till there's no war to fight, right?
Yeah.
He gave him too early.
You want to take that bold decision. That's why I said that.
You want to be the mature one.
Yeah, because from what, and I'm sure they also have their data. They saw what was going on. You understand? And they felt like, where it's going right now, there's too much chaos out there. And so why don't we just come up and make that decision so that at least tempers will calm a bit? Because most of the things that were happening were as a result of the fact that the EC was quiet. And people also believe that the NPP was not saying anything. And so maybe it was just a decision that, let's calm people by just coming out and say that.
Sando Anthony Honsas
says you contributed to this defeat. You spoke arrogantly. And Mohammed Sifa says that by December next year, I'm sure the dollar will be reset to 4 cities to the $1. Cement will go back to 30 cities. Indeed, a country full of short memory people and ungrateful people as well. Okay.
That would be interesting. I would love to see that.
The dollar.
Whether that is possible.
As for the cement, they will give
or
some.
zastable, we'll see.
Katie Hammond will try and deal with the cement issue.
Oh dear.
Godfred says that we will beat the NDC on strategy and they will not understand. Okay.
And Emmanuel Yao Basin says, you became so calm and sober. Some of us, we warn you to be careful how you raised your shoulders so high, but you didn't listen. Get prepared for the attacks that would be coming towards you from next week. I mean, this really paints how tough the job of communicators.
Yes, the NDC has suffered this before 4 years ago. Remember when they came out and was speaking, we were comfortable lead, we are that. People just also came up the way they are coming. Because the thing is this, when you have a certain feel about how things are going, based on what you're receiving, you might want to just go out there and be bold and let people know that, you know what, we know what we are doing, we know what we're receiving. It makes your supporters or those who are with you feel a bit relieved that there's some light at the end of the tunnel. There's some positivity out there, and so you don't want to blame them that much. It happens to every politician. You have that adrenaline, like, oh, we're winning, we're getting there. So you say certain things, you might just think that, oh, it's just for the people to be happy and excited that things are getting well. But
ladies and gentlemen, the next NPP's communicator.
The job?
Yeah.
Nah.
Oh, you don't want it?
Nah.
Oh.
I can't take pills.
Anyway, so I saw this post by one Esenam or say.
Almighty what?
Wait, oh, you know her?
This is what I know.
Okay, so Cheddar has done remarkably well for a first timer with some good coaching strategy, well thought through ideas, a few well articulated messaging and time. He could be the man to watch in the near future. And it's also another conversation that has sprung up on social media, talking about the possibility of Cheddar being the third force here in Ghana. Because, I mean, he was able to garner over 30,000 votes.
That's impressive.
That is really impressive. I mean, for most Ghanaians, they thought that Alan would actually be the third force.
Yeah.
And so him being able to pull up these numbers, I mean, what do you make of it?
You see, there's an image of him going around on social media where I think it was taken in the studios of Hit FM where he's opened his eyes like he was surprised about. He was actually surprised of what the figures he got. And that picture actually translates whatever people are saying about him very well.
Yeah.
I think he didn't even see himself getting to that point. Getting that numbers.
You're sure?
Beating Ireland. That's a big deal, right? So maybe, just maybe,
but then again, one would argue, why would he not see himself possibly winning or doing well in the election and pump money, invest a lot of money? Because I mean, you saw his campaign.
Yep,
it wasn't cheap.
Branding, everything on point. But that's different from you saying you're pumping money into something and going to the grounds where the actual thing is happening. You understand? We have seen people go and vote as presidential candidates and they realize that they actually voted for themselves and none of their family members even voted for them. Where they actually vote with their family members, they have one vote from that place. So if you are getting this, maybe you're looking at it from, okay, I have done so much work. I have invested so much into it, but I never saw it coming the way it has come in terms of the figures that you're receiving. So that alone can surprise you in a bit.
Well, I'm hoping that is not the case. And if that is the case, then I hope this is more or less like a wake-up call for him. But let's look at how people have reacted to the possibility of him being a third force. I beg your pardon.
That's a borrowed word from the NPP, but it's okay. It's possible. Nana Edu Apia says, if Ghanaians don't know death, they should look at sleep.
What does that mean?
Literally.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That multimedia guy, Lodi Boateng Ano, says, our next president, 2028, inshallah.
See that?
With over 3,000? President, 3,000?
I mean, maybe he can build upon that number. You never know. I mean, I saw people make arguments on social media that perhaps if he gets a good, communicator to groom him, or a godfather figure or something to really...
At the point, it was making the job very difficult. You have people supporting him, and then he goes say something else, and people are like,
because he's a
how
first
do we go
timer.
back again to start all over again? So
Anyway.
yes, the communication thing, I think, is something that they have to take a look at. Rosemary Abuaji says, I actually call him Discovery of the Season. Hey, that's more like Ghana Music Awards. That's what they have, Discovery of the Year and all that. I don't know how it came here in politics. Sadok King says, Goom Party also did well. 3rd place when they first came. We're talking about now. When they first came. Nico Pogu says, good political marketing. Yeah, he did well. Branding, fantastic.
My people said it was settings. I'm sure you saw that. The settings man.
The
I'm
one
sure
who
you saw
carries
that.
chair from one place
Right?
to the other place with a car is what is not settings too.
Anyway, this is HQ Interactive coming to you live from the strong room here at your election headquarters. I'm Noella. Karen Yali, I did this with
KMJ.
and of course,
we're still waiting on the EC.
yeah, we're still waiting
we're
on
gonna
the
be here.
EC. In fact, the commissioner says they have up to 72 hours to declare the results. And so you really would have to take some time, have some patience, and please, peace over chaos.
Yeah,
that is
very, very, very
paramount.
important.
We should,
Very, very important.
So let's cross over to my colleague Kojo Brace, who is in the main Joy News studio. Take it away, Kojo.
For that wonderful work you're doing there on bringing us what is happening on social media. Well, myself and Kofi J are here to do the analysis on the parliamentary seat. But Kofi, you told me we should start from the Greater Accra region, right? And take you to Lejokuku. Okay,
Let's go to Lejokuku.
This is Lejokuku.
Yeah, we have the result, but I'm sure that currently the map will turn green very soon.
Okay.
Why do I say that? This is the first time in a long time that we are seeing Lejokuku, giving somebody 2 term. I mean, the 2nd term in Parliament. Okay. Benjamin Ayiku, we are learning, has actually, maintained his position as the Member of Parliament for Lejokuku constituency. Bernard Okoboy, all of them, Benjamin and Bernard, could not, flip the seat back from green to blue.
But let me touch on something you said there, that they don't give someone the opportunity to go consecutive.
Not at all. Not
so
at all.
Are you saying that the MPP to MPP was the 2 different candidates here?
Well, I mean, I know Lejokuku to be a constituency that gives you just 1 term. I do not know why we have, that. I mean, but it's one of the constituencies that will just give you, 1 term in terms of the parliamentary. Exactly. This is.
So this is 2008, right?
Yeah, 2008.
Gladys and Ashite. No, but Nino Tedia won it.
Won it.
So let's go back to say 2004.
12, right?
2004. Who won it?
Ashite
won it for the MPP.
Ashite won it.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do...
That is Noli Ashite, yes. Noli Ashite was for...
But it's 2004.
It's 2004.
They won it in 2000. So let's see. Who won it? Okay.
2000 was a different person.
A different person.
Yeah.
Okay. So your point about maybe an individual winning it back to back.
The only person I know, I think somewhere 96 or so, it was Ajayboy. Ajayboy was the only candidate of the NDC who was given a 2nd term in Lejokuku constituency. And so meaning maintaining Benjamin Ayiku means that, that means, Lejokuku. No, the reason why maybe you're not getting it is that we used to have Lejokuku Krowo.
Okay. And it was separated.
Okay. Exactly. I think somewhere 2012 or so. I'm not so sure. But you had the Krowo side being the Nungwa and Lejokuku being Teshi proper. And so it's an interesting place. The reason why it's an interesting place is that it used to be one of those bellwether constituencies where they will vote for the the winning party. Now, talking about bellwether, you and I were analyzing one constituency in the Western region. And when it comes to the Western region, you are an expert. And that constituency is, Shama.
Yeah.
I want us to go to Shama and possibly
let's go to Shama.
analyze it. I mean, at the parliamentary level, definitely they have decided to vote MPP. Let's look at the trend. Shama, what you have on your screen shows that this is one of the constituencies that has never voted skirt and blouse. Never voted skirt and blouse. If they give you parliamentary, they will give you presidential. And what we know is that if you want to see how Ghana or the national picture will look like on parliamentary level, especially at the presidential level, look at Shama. Shama is the perfect litmus test for what will happen at the national level. Look at what you have on your screens. Doesn't it paint a picture for you of breaking the 8? I mean, if you want to break the 8, then possibly
you need to break
Shama first.
Yeah, because in 1996, when the NDC won it,
they actually won in 92. Yeah, I'm sure they won in 92
I mean, 92 because the MPP withdrew, you probably won it. So in 96, the NDC won it. Shama won it. They won it in Shama.
Exactly.
In 2000, John Agyekum Kufuor won the election for the MPP. He won in Shama, both parliamentary and presidential. In 2004, they won it, and Shama, they won Shama as well. MPP flipped, NDC flipped it in 2008. They won Shama. In 2012, NDC won it. They won Shama. In 2016, MPP won Shama, and they won the national election.
So,
in 2020, they won the national election. They won Shama. In 2024, we know that Emilia Arthur has won Shama for the NDC, and the NDC has indeed won the national election.
I mean, exactly.
So as you say, if you want to win Ghana, Shama.
If you want to break the 8, you have to break Shama first. And unlike Lejokuku, that is king of skirt and blouse. When it comes to skirt and blouse, Lejokuku is one of those constituencies that will always give you skirt and blouse. But they showed us something. The constituency showed something different starting 2020 and this year. They have decided to vote green on both presidential and parliamentary. It started in 2020. We've seen the same, pan out in the 2024 election.
All right. Okay. Interesting. There are so many interesting things we need to look at when it comes to parliamentary, who and who are falling and who are coming back. But we need to go to studio 997 now because Kojo Nyankson is standing by with the man who knows a lot when it comes to security matters in this country and beyond. Professor Kwesi there joining Kojo Nyankson in studio 995. So Kojo, set Samanka, Gwefusinana, Unkwado.
And I've got to say, I'm sure you've noticed what we seem to be doing here. When there's an MFI in the Joy News studio, there's an MFI in the studio 997, and now we're doing it with the Kujus. But with good reason. Thank you so much for that analysis. That was some fascinating stuff, giving us a bit of the background to the numbers. And by the way, if you're just joining us, here's the reality. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has conceded defeat, which means that John Dramani Mahama is the president-elect of Ghana. It means that for the first time in our history, we have a female vice president incumbent. Now, let's also take a minute to acknowledge that even though the concession has happened, the process by which the results are to be officially declared is still underway. At the Electoral Commission, they are still waiting for faxes to come through from 16 regions, after which they will be able to declare officially who has won these elections. But of course, collation goes on unabated, and currently we can tell you that we do have access to data from 123 constituencies out of the 276. Now, out of the 123, Joy News can confirm that 100 of them have been won by the NDC, 23 of them by the NPP. We'll give you more details as we go on, but you can see these statistics at the bottom of your screen if you're watching us on Joy News. For those of you who have tuned in on Joy 99.7 FM, we thank you very much for staying with us. Our coverage continues. Prof. Kwesi joins us. It's always a pleasure, and it's very nice to see you. But my goodness, what a day.
What a day, what a process, and what excitement.
Indeed, indeed, much excitement. Yeah. Let's talk about the process, since you've touched on it. Does it make sense that at this point, when the party that had the most to lose has felt safe enough in their knowledge of the outcome to concede defeat, that our electoral commission is still nowhere near telling us officially who won?
Well, it raises, Kojo, some very disturbing issues. Was the Electoral Commission waiting for another outcome? Is their technology way too old-fashioned? Are the officers around the polling stations, constituency collation centers, regional collation centers very slow in getting things done? I think it's negative to all the questions I've asked, because if the political parties themselves have been able to get a fair idea of the trends, and Kodio was able to tell us the percentage police stations that opened late, they don't have enough materials, the BVs were not working well, then the EC itself has very little cause not to have an overview of what is happening where. You know, prior to this election, one of the things that became quickly clear was that polling station results and the subsequent pink sheets were going to play a very key role in the declaration of the results, but also the sanctity of the whole process. When His Excellency the President, jokingly said with that smile or the giggle that he has, that I cannot hand over to somebody I've beaten twice. And Mr. Mahama retorted, well, it will be one of the polling stations, and I am not going to the Supreme Court. It became clear that the battle would be where the voting took place. As the Ashantis would say, this is a phrase I like very much, agroniform. So every single party, and yesterday I visited probably about 30 or so polling stations. The party guys were behind the EC people, watching keenly. I wasn't there for any of the counting, but because the EC expanded the number of polling stations, so there was an average of between 400 and 700 or 800 thereabouts.
Per station.
Per station. Meaning that on average, without any hula baloo, even in darkness, by around 8:30, 9 p.m.-ish, most polling stations had finished what they were doing and signed off on the pink sheets. My colleagues who went out to observe were able, from around 7:30 thereon, place photocopies or pictures of the signed pink sheets on our platform. So my assessment is that those pink sheets would have been photographed from individual polling stations, sent to the Constituency Collation Center. They may have printed them or whatever, done some tallying, sent them on to the regional collation centers of the parties, and then onward to Accra. So that on or around 10 p.m., 11 p.m.-ish, the parties had a fair idea, after they had crunched the numbers, the direction of travel. And you could see that from the body language, first of Sami Jemfi, who was very confident, calm, a couple of verbal vibes here and there, or jabs. And then the MPP team came. Miracles was hopping and dancing, looked more like a praying mantis on hot coals. Ahiagbe, is that his name?
Who?
The Ahiagbe.
Ahiagba. Richard Ahiagba.
Yeah.
Yes.
For the first time, looked very sober and very humble. And the lady who joined them, who had a very amused look on her face. So, 3 people seeking to say that they were in the comfortable lead, but whose body language portrayed something else. Ahiagba had given up. Miracles was fighting hard to show some hope, but it was obvious from his body language that he had given up. The lady gave us a fair indication that, well, she had accepted the obvious.
And this was all before midnight.
All before midnight. All before I left here around 9:45, I think. So, for the EC to claim, and now it's appealing for patience, or is pleading for patience, that they are waiting for faxes, tells us, Kojo, that we need to revamp the system. Because if Dr. Bawumia had not done what he did, showing maturity, showing that sagacity to say, look, I'm putting Ghana for first, and that Ghana must win, Ghana has won, and congratulating President-elect John Mahama, who also in his response to Dr. Bawumia called him my brother, and Ghana has won, that we would have had a totally different outcome. So there are a lot of questions that we need to ask ourselves, go back to the EC and the team, what their difficulties were, so that this does not happen again.
Prof, let's venture some analysis of what EC's issues might be. First of all, I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate. They did tell us before the election that their goal was to have the results in between 24 and 48 hours. Now, to be fair, they are still on target to hit their goal, are they not?
Oh, most certainly. But this is like playing football, and we all know it's 90 minutes with the possibility of 2 15-minute additions in extra time. But when, by the end of the first 90 minutes, there's no clear victor, and we start the extra time. And by the first minute or so, I wallop you so much that you know that given another 90 minutes, you cannot equalize and win. So you decide and say that, look, Mr. Referee or Madam Referee, I'm really not interested in continuing this game. So I concede that my opponent has won. And the referee says, well, the rule says 30 minutes extra. So although you've walked off the field and actually shaking hands with your opponent, please do stand on the field and wait until the 30 minutes is up before I blow the final whistle. So I'm not going to call you, or you cannot be called to receive the cup. So the spectators should wait before they can take their pictures, and the confetti can be sent up in the sky. And that is what is happening here.
Although, I mean, they would need to have actual data in order to declare the results, would they not?
But more often than not. So we are looking at 2 things here. The slowness with which the accurate data is treated. But the basis for that accurate data exists from the polling stations that all party agents have signed, and upon which Dr. Bawumia, his number crunches, say
Back, and this is your election headquarters. We're live on Joy FM, on Joy Prime, and of course on the Joy News channel. We've been doing this since the night before polls opened here in Ghana in a bid to make history. Either way, this was going to be a historic outcome. But boy, could you have predicted this? Within 16 hours of the polls closing, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the flag bearer of the NPP, has conceded defeat. What this means is that essentially the president-elect is John Dramani Mahama. History has been made. However, what does it mean? What are the implications? These are the conversations we're having here on the election headquarters as the results keep trickling in. We currently have about 123 constituency results confirmed here in our own strong room. And out of those, 100 of them have gone to the NDC and 23 to the NPP. That is the Joy News strong rooms tally so far. And we'll keep bringing you information as it unfolds. Now, listen, if you're in Effiang Kwanta, anywhere near the hospital, do me a favor, please. I'm hearing some reports that something has happened to the recently launched statue of President Akufo-Addo. Is it true? Send through your pictures and we'll share them. But Prof. Enin, we were in the middle of your analysis of the situation at the EC. And of course, you were talking about the fact that in your view, it's either a problem with the speed of their processes or I didn't hear the second option.
Well, I mean, so the processes, we all agree, must be thorough because there have been too many unforced errors on the part of the EC. So they cannot afford to make any errors with, putting out some figures and then coming back to change them, even if it doesn't change the final result. But it raises questions as to why almost all media houses have an idea as to who has won. Kodio has given an interim statement that is extremely detailed, and the political parties themselves, before I left here last night, were behaving in ways that were indicative of how the turnout was going to be. So 24 hours later, if the EC is still pleading for patience, for time, then we need, after all this has quietened down, to say this are the systems that we have in place now fit for purpose.
These systems cost a fortune, though, Prof.
Well, if I remember, you've been talking about this for a long time. Whenever they went to Parliament to ask for some funding, I think you raised questions, and my friend Kofi Bentel from Imani and others, were saying that, look, are these systems, giving us value for money? And I think this delay proves beyond any shadow of doubt that the systems cannot cope. Even with, from what I'm hearing, and you can confirm it if it's true or you've heard it, that about 6 million people did not vote. Last night, it became clear that the turnout was low, and we were trying to be fairly cautious around the turnout. But I think this afternoon, some figures were being bandied around that close to, 6 million people did not vote.
Didn't turn up to vote at all.
Didn't turn up to vote. So even with such low turnout, if we're experiencing these, long processes to ensure that everything is done correctly, then I think had we had another 2 million people voting, their own 72-hour deadline or 48-hour deadline would never have been met. And therefore, we need to consider the efficiency of the systems, because elections do breed tensions, because the processes prior to the voting day, those days are filled with accusations, some of them blatantly false, but it's about power and people will do anything for power. Misinformation is a problem, disinformation is a problem, so by the time we actually arrive at the penultimate date, enough has been done to create a sense of anxiety, fear, and people want to get this over and done with in as secure a manner as possible.
Prof, forgive me. I'm just receiving a signal that the General Secretary of the NPP, Justin Frimpong Kudia, is addressing a presser right now at the NPP headquarters. Well, we can't be left out of it, so let's go there now and find out what's being said.
In 2 different occasions when we met you at your office, and your words were unambiguous that you see to it that we have a free, fair, and transparent elections. Mr. IGP, we believe you have seen what is happening at the various coalition centers. And as a political party, the New Patriotic Party, we are calling on you to maintain law and order at the various coalition centers. We must ensure that the rights and safety of all our citizens are protected. We must not allow illegal looting and intimidation of our citizens. And I call on the leadership of the NDC to call its supporters to order and condemn these unnecessary acts of violence. Ladies and gentlemen, because we deal with data, I will this juncture let you know the figures that we have collated from the constituencies that I've mentioned. For Damango, out of the 93 polling stations, 91 were collated, and our candidate, Honorable Abu Jinapo, was leading by 1,802. In fact, even if we add the 2 remaining polling stations all to NDC, our candidate would have still won. For Ahafano South West, we won by 677. For Fantiakwa North, we won by 452. For Trobo constituency, we won by 8,900. For Akwetia, we won by 2,038. For Obuasi East, we won by 28 votes. For Ablekuma North, we won with 400 votes. For Techiman South, we won with 3,176 votes. And Tema Central, we won by 55 votes. So these are the figures that we have from these constituencies that I've mentioned. And once again, I call on the leadership of the NDC, Your Excellency, former President and President-elect, please, you have made this country in a peaceful manner. We considered without even causing any chaos. For the sake of the peace and stability in our country, for the sake of the properties of several individuals in this country, for the sanctity of the work that the Electoral Commission is doing, please call on your members to allow the Electoral Commission to do their work. Violence should not have a place in our electoral process. As a country, we have come far from 1992, when we decided to go into multi-party democracy. Over 32 years, we have had a very successful election. Please don't let these acts by the tax in your party mar the beauty of the 2024 elections. Thank you very much.
So that's what just happened. Justin Frimpong-Kodua, General Secretary of the NPP, has addressed a presser where he has highlighted the numbers that the NPP has collated through their own internal systems for specific constituencies where there appears to be confusion over the outcomes. And he has appealed to who he describes as President-elect John Dramani Mahama to impress upon his party faithfuls to allow peace to prevail so that the Electoral Commission can do its job and the results can be officially confirmed and declared in these trouble hotspots. And we're going to bring you back a list of the particular constituencies that were mentioned by the General Secretary of the NPP and the results that he declared, or well, he proclaimed for these particular constituencies. We'll bring you those details as the press conference continues. He's currently speaking in local language. But Prof. Enin, I mean, a significant development there, seeking to address the particular remaining hotspots where it appears that there is contention over the results.
So a couple of important pointers there. First is that he does not dispute that John Mahama is president-elect. And I think that is a very key point, meaning that the data that they have, that we were talking about, is good enough for him and his team to agree with Dr. Bawumia. The second is that all the constituencies that he mentioned, with the exception of the Dome-Kwabenya, that run into the thousands, almost all the others are fairly tight, low figures. So yes, people may want to do a recount to be very sure, and I think that is a fair point. The third relates to the issues around violence. I think as Ghanaians, we've done pretty well. I've always said this, Kojo, that about a week or so to the elections, my colleagues who follow election-related violence, hotspots, the defacement of posters, disruption of rallies, actually felt that the figures were extremely low this year. We didn't see excessive misbehavior by vigilantes and, party boys. So we've done well so far. The few spots where we've had violence at collation centers, because I think both parties appealed to their supporters to follow the boxes to the collation centers. And there were these instances where EC officials were carrying the boxes on the head. So we've done well until now. Dr. Bawumia's very mature, dignified, concession speech. So there is no basis for violence. And I think both Dr. Bawumia's speech, concession speech, and President-elect John Mahama's response all said Ghana had won. That this is a collective victory. It's now time for the hard work. So once more, Justin and his team have come down to some really small numbers. So the EC and its officials particularly must go over those figures once more so we can have an incontrovertible declaration in those hotspots.
Prof, is it a surprise to you that at this stage, when one party has actually conceded defeat, the ones who seem to be being still a bit militant about things are the winners?
I think yesterday, I think before the elections, President Mahama issued a statement about, I think, some incident relating to the EC. And there was another statement later on in the evening, quite late, about the movement of the military. And I have suggested to the NDC that because of potential tensions and misreading of these statements, they should add visuals to them. In coming here, the whole of today, I've been on the road, traveling around the city, moving from one station to the other. Accra is considerably quieter than a normal Sunday. We've seen some pictures from Techiman South, I think, and other areas where some violence is going on. Yes. So we need incontrovertible evidence that it is rather the victor, instead of going out to celebrate, it's rather being violent. That sort of backs the trend relating to post-election, violence. No, victors hardly ever go out to commit violence. So I would plead with Justin Kodua and his team to contact their representatives in those constituencies and in those areas to see if they can get us the audio. Because I think Dr. George Akufo-Addo, the IGP, and his team at the Election Commission, Election Security Task Force, have assured us of speedy responses, and also to punish those who commit mayhem, as a sign and a signal to others that they need to comply with the law. So let's help those involved in ensuring the sanctity of this vote by providing us all the most incontrovertible evidence that we need. But it does back the trend that it is the victor rather going out to commit acts of violence.
Yeah, well, this is your election headquarters. We're talking to Professor Kwesi Eni. We're doing some in-depth analysis of the outcome of these historic events that have unfolded today. The NPP's flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has conceded defeat. And currently, we have results from 127 out of 276 constituencies. 101 of these are being called by Joy News for the NDC, with 26 of them being called for the NPP. But of course, there are several results that are yet to come through, some under dispute. Stay with us, because it will still all unfold here on your election headquarters. We'll be right back after these. Of the 2024 elections across the country, everything that has happened of moment has been shared with you here on election headquarters, and it's not going to stop now. Let me tell you what's been going on in Dome-Kwabenya, where the results are still not quite in the bag. Some tension has been ensuing as a result, and our own Blessed Soga is there for it. Blessed, what's the latest?
News conference, and some of the NDC supporters, we understand, took charge of that process, which halted coalition for some time. So what's happening now is that the process has restarted, and they had to do that for the presidential and parliamentary. But the supporters you see here believe that Eliklim Akurugu is the winner, a reason for which they want to protect their ballot and to ensure that she's declared as the winner. For the very first time in its recent history, what we're seeing is that Dome-Kwabenya and its NDC supporters are claiming victory because they believe that they've done well. In fact, they claim that they have won these elections. We're still waiting, because up there, and we just might want to show you what's happening at the top, where, of course, in terms of the building that we're talking about, we are expecting the Electoral Commission to, of course, declare what you see up there is where the declaration will be done. So the individuals you see up there are not ready now. We're waiting for them to, of course, just declare, and that's why all of these people are anxious, waiting for something to be done. You see the anxiety on the faces of these people who say that it is Eliklim that has won, and they believe that it's time for Eliklim to be declared. We're not sure of what's happening. What's going on? What's
enough? We are tired.
What's the problem? Come now. So what's the problem? What's the problem?
Come and declare for us.
The balloting has been delayed, and we don't know, as of now, we don't know what is going on, because we've been told about 30 minutes to stand well for the EC to come and declare it for us. Still now, we didn't hear anything from them. So that's what's going on now.
And you don't seem to be happy. You want the results to be declared now?
Yes, we want the results to be declared now. Since yesterday, we've been standing here and they refuse to declare us.
For how long have you been here?
Since yesterday. Since yesterday, we've been standing here and the EC refused to declare us. Please, you should declare us, okay? We are tired. We want to go home and rest. Thank you.
For how many hours have you been here?
Since yesterday. Yes. So we are tired. And the EC told us there will not be any military men around. But look at the top. Look at the top. We are afraid. So the EC have to declare us to go.
Why do you believe that the NDC candidate has won?
Oh yes, because we won almost all the police stations. EC made us aware that elections have been won at the police station. You see, so the EC officers have to declare us so we can go home. Yes, we knew we won.
So you've also been here since yesterday?
Yes, we have been here since yesterday, and they have to declare the EC. Like EC, I don't know what they are waiting for. They have to declare the destiny for us. And we have been here since yesterday. Challenge, they have to declare. And NDC have won. So they have to declare for us.
The woman has fought a battle. That you give it to her. Yes. The woman.
Okay. So we'll try to make sense of this, but clearly you can see that the reason why these people are agitated is simply because they believe that Elikplim has won the elections. But the Electoral Commission is yet to do the declaration, so we're just still waiting to hear from them as we're expecting them to, of course, declare the results. It's been more than 17 hours, no clarity on what's happening within Dome-Kwabenya, but all we're being told is that we'll have to wait for some few more hours. Let's get to some more people who are here. Just come down and talk.
Because they want to steal the election. That's why you want to declare it. Okay, if you are not declaring it, we are declaring ourselves. Declare. You want peace. You know military. You want to go. You want to hear me that you want to declare the election. You want to go home. That's what you want.
What's your name?
Our apologies there. The audio doesn't seem to be of the best quality, but those are images from Dome-Kwabenya, where we are learning the latest in terms of the outcome of the election, where there is a dispute over who won it. The NDC supporters, many of whom you saw in that video, suggesting that in fact their candidate Elikplim won Dome-Kwabenya, but of course the NPP supporters disagreeing and believing that Michael Oquaye Jr was the victor. Now let's not forget, Dome-Kwabenya is key. It is the biggest constituency in Ghana, and undoubtedly who wins Dome-Kwabenya is a very significant and important outcome of this election. Prof. Enin, you've seen the images. I mean, is this something to worry about? What's the proper antidote at this point?
Well, it's speed, careful retallying of the ballots. But I think initially an explanation as to why 5-6 hours after, I think we were all convinced that a decision had been made, there seems to be some dispute around it, because the gap was fairly substantial. I mean, it wasn't that small, so for a conversation to come up that we need to recount or retally creates this impression that somebody trying to play with our choice. And I think this is beginning to feed into the general frustrations around the country where these delays are taking place. So once more, the EC has the onus to ensure that we get the results quickly. But it has, where this result to change, I think it will open potentially a Pandora's box of people asking for a recount.
Yes.
And this afternoon, when I raised the hypothetical possibility that, look, the delays for me gives me a sense of unease, because the more we delay, the more tensions rise, the more people raise questions whether legitimate or not. People begin to ask, were we hasty in conceding? And we really need to be careful going forward. I don't know what the procedures are for asking for a recount, but sometime around 12 noon or probably earlier, it was clear that the NDC candidate had been declared the winner. And for a couple of hours, I think there was no challenge to it. And I think I did an analysis earlier this afternoon on another platform as to how and why His Excellency Michael Oquaye Jr. had lost. And my argument was that it was not Michael Oquaye Jr. who lost, but it was a protest vote against the party for its disrespect to the constituents. When Ajwasaf left this country for months on end, and the party thought they didn't owe the constituents any explanation, and people thought, okay, Mike Oquaye Jr., you're a very nice man, you really actually given up your ambassador, your high commissioner's position to come back home and want to fight to help us. But we really don't like the way the party treated us when the former member of parliament for the party, left us and almost turned us into an orphan constituency. So it was a protest vote of sorts against the party and not the individual Michael Oquaye. So for it to be turned upside down, but I think we need to be patient for the next few hours.
I think you are right about it opening a Pandora's box if indeed these results get overturned or reversed. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll bring you everything as it unfolds in Dome-Kwabenya. But until then, we still have a president-elect. We still have a concession speech from Dr. Bawumia, which means we now have for the first time a female vice president coming in. What does that mean?
Well, it's super historic. But before I come to Professor Dan Ajiman, Kojo, there's also been a rather disturbing reduction in the old experienced women who were in parliament. A disproportionate number of them have lost. And that saddens me a bit, because my hope was that one day we can gradually nudge up to the 30%, 35%, 40% probably in my lifetime. But be that as it may, Nana is now the vice president-elect, and that is a major victory for Ghanaian women, and also for the men who are supportive of women's empowerment. I always say this, and I think my staff and my friends are fed up hearing this, that I'm pro-women because my mother, who is 90 now, went to Wesley Girls more than 76 years ago. Got a fine education, went to Wesley College, rose through the ranks at Ghana Education Service. So I know what women's education can do and what a strong, determined, self-confident, suave woman can bring to the table. And I think Professor Achiman brings strategic leadership, loads of experience, former Minister of Education, I think the first female Vice Chancellor in Ghana, one of the first female Vice Chancellors on this continent and in the world anywhere. Tough, credible track record from the University of Ghana.
Of Cape Coast.
Oh, sorry, of Cape Coast. But I want to say something else. When Mr. Mahama was bold enough to decide on her as his running mate, there was a very disgraceful behavior in this country. Particularly, misogynistic supporters of the NPP, characterized her in all manner of ways. She's a witch, she's this, she's that. Even Wuntumi had the audacity to insult this woman. So tonight, let me recognize one person who, against the wishes of her party, stood up to defend Jane. And that was Eslo, who said, yes, we may come from different party traditions, but we are women first and foremost, and we need to stick together. So Esra, thank you very much for being bold enough to stand by Jane. So what does this mean? It means a lot for the women agenda from Ghana, but certainly also from ECOWAS and the African Union. Banana brings a lot of things to the table, her strategic experience, vision, and in her understated style. I mean, you wouldn't see her flailing her arms on a campaign platform, but in a certain manner, managed in an understated way go to marketplaces where she could present her multiple identities, scholar, woman, teacher, so she could appeal to different stakeholder groups. And I think in a very quiet way, people might not have noticed that, but as she traveled around this country and people listened to her and the stories spread around, I think she brought something to the table that was quite interesting. And with her toughness, I think she will be a good partner to John.
What do you think? Successor to John Mahama after his 4-year term?
I'm not too sure, and I don't want to be speculative, but let's see. Because the 4 years is a long time. One can get worn out.
But I mean, how do you assess her own ambition? Do you see that she might be interested in becoming the first female president of Ghana?
For breaking the glass ceiling, why not? And she's got the qualifications. I think she's shown competence wherever she's delivered. So yes, if you remember several months ago, I think somebody had made a rather unfortunate slip of tongue, where some references were made, probably I shouldn't repeat that here, but that created some discomfort, I think, for her, and some embarrassment. And she very quickly came up and said, no. It wasn't meant that way at all. There's no conversation around that. But I wish her the very best, and I wish the team well. And we look forward to helping the women, peace and security agenda and providing her with all the support that she needs.
Yeah.
I think she deserves all our backing and all our support. I don't know which secondary school she went to, but if she went to Wesley Girls, then I think my sisters are going to give me a hard time now. That since Dr. Buzia became Prime Minister, Park Kwesi, the late Park Kwesi Mr. Arthur went to fast food school, so I think that's good enough. So my sisters, Gifty and Dorcas, cannot throw their weight about too much.
Well, if you have Wesley Girls sisters, then I know how you feel.
Well, could you be careful?
I feel your pain.
Gifty is listening to us. I would read her.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
But I think there is no doubt that the weight of history is on Prof's shoulders. Yes. A lot will be expected of her. But because we're discussing the potential, the idea of her political future, it's fair to ask. I mean, if even we can't tell whether she would be interested in succeeding John Mahama, do you think that John Mahama considered that she would be a suitable successor in choosing her?
Oh, certainly. But what are the permutations? In 2020, at the height of the abuse and the criticisms, a colleague of mine and I then said, look, why don't we do an assessment of Nana's choices? So we wrote this monograph, published in Sweden, that we titled A Step Forward, but No Guarantee of Gender-Friendly Policies. So I think John weighed, or President-elect, and let me title him properly, President-elect Mahama weighed all the options, and against the odds, decided that one, he will be able to work very well with her, and she'll be able to carry the mantle. If you remember, prior to his announcement that he was going again with the vice president-elect, there were all these sort of calculations as to who could best replace her. The argument was that she didn't bring very much to the table. What Ghanaian political analysts forgot is that campaign styles differ. And because as an academic, she's also managed to reach different stakeholder groups and teach different classes of different backgrounds, different age groups, different experiences. She brought that to bear, and instead of standing on one stage in which there's an amalgamation of 20 different stakeholder groups, and she has only 15 minutes in which she has to shout and shout and shout herself hoarse. And probably she will be able to speak to only 2 of the stakeholder groups. She chose, together with her team, I think in consultation with the president-elect, to do a much more targeted, smaller, groups where she could speak directly to people's lived challenges and prefer solutions where she giving the nod. And I think that worked well. And in targeting market women, for most market women, they are the lifelines of their families. They work very hard, they bring in the money, they look after the children, because, most of us will go and drink our money anyway. So she targeted people who were the lifeline of their household and their communities. And I think they replicated her story and her messages.
Well, Prof, you're not going to like this, but I can confirm that Prof Nana Jinupukwuanjiman did indeed go to Wesley Girls. and the confirmation is coming from my sister, who went to Wesley Girls. We are dead.
Right. We are dead. We are dead.
But, this once again, I mean, you can't escape the history of it.
Yes.
And another aspect of you know, who is now to be the vice president is to do with what specific role we envisage her playing. Because typically, in fact, factually, our constitution prescribes no role for the vice president. It is whatever the president seeks for you to assist him with. Except for the fact that you fill in when the president is unavailable or unable to carry out his duties. So apart from that, there's no real daily role, except for what the president decides. And typically, we have seen the vice president manage the economic management team or chair the economic management team. And we have also seen a trend of economics heavy, you know, vice presidents. Prof is not. I mean, her expertise is in other fields.
Yes.
Do you think there will be a change, a buck in the trend, a change in the convention, or are we to expect Prof to take up the usual mantle of running the economic management team?
Well, I always have something to say about this. You know, as a strategic leader, managing what, a 40,000, you know, strong student campus with the teaching staff, she doesn't certainly have the expertise in all the areas, apart from her very narrow scholarly expertise. But I think what you learn to do as a good leader is to identify those who know and are the experts, and you give them free hands. And I think I learned this as a fairly young man when I read a book about Ronald Reagan, whose attention span wasn't that long, but who was confident in his own skin to choose the best and the brightest around him, give them the free hands. And when you put the paper in front of him and you explain what was on the paper to him, he will run with it. So I'm expecting the president to ask the vice president-elect to chair the economic management team, that she will choose the best and the brightest to give her the guidance that she needs. But I think she will also be the chair of the police council.
That's correct.
Yes. She will also be the chair of the police council.
That is also, in fact, that is prescribed by law.
That is prescribed by law,
Right. Now, it puts to mind the fact that we have a transitional process to go through.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. But before, I haven't heard your take on the concession. You know, Vice President coming out within 16 hours of the polls closing to concede. And, I mean, he actually did say some very interesting things in that speech, didn't he?
He did. He did. I think I noted about 4 or 5 key things that the Vice President said. First, that he placed Ghana at the center of his considerations to concede, which I think for a Ghanaian politician shows maturity, and even more importantly, that when he appended his signature to that peace pact, that he meant whatever was in there. I think the concession speech also very clearly showed through Bawumia, the non-political Bawumia, the human face of Bawumia. Humble, charming, putting his country and people's lives first before his ambition. And that is not what I can tell you, you can say for a lot of people. And I can imagine the internal arguments and proud to, he's saying, I'm coming out. I want to do this. For Ghana, I don't want any loss of lives. We've had more than enough. Because last night by this time, the young Pala guy had died. The 2 people in Kaswa had been shot and others injured. And I think in the vice president's calculus, any extra minute without a formal declaration would heighten the tensions. And I'm sure he might have pushed his team to crunch the numbers. And after he had gone through it, because he knows that he's a number cruncher himself, decided that, look, we can concede. But I think there are a lot of people in the party who are very angry with him. But he also appealed to the investor community, to keep faith with Ghana. And I think once more, that was really very nice of him. That, yes, I'm leaving the scene, but look, we are talking about a whole nation, so keep faith with us. But he said 2 things that I found really very interesting about responsible public behavior.
Right.
And also that, quote, he will subject government policy to scrutiny, which I think is also very good. And I found the responsible behavior and subjecting government policy to scrutiny very key, because we are going to have a 9th parliament in which probably about 70-75% of the incoming parliamentarians are first-timers. Because if you look at the old-timers from both parties who went for re-election after they had decided that they had served for too long, like Chairman Sabonsu and Harun Idrisu, and then those who lost the primaries and those that had some squabbles and decided to go independent. Just a little over 50% of the 8th parliamentarians went for re-election. And knowing our penchant for changing almost 50%, my assessment is that, and then all the heavyweights that have fallen by the wayside last night and today. The 9th parliament is going to be made up of fairly new people. And it's not just about learning to pass the laws. It's also about the parliamentary culture of negotiation, mediation, working in camera, in committees, drilling down and becoming expert, subject matter, very knowledgeable. But I also know that people find it very strange to respect the mace. I think people think it's just a piece of stick. But in parliamentary culture, you cannot and must not turn your back to the mace when you are speaking. But we see always Speaker Gbagbin having to correct people. Don't turn your back to the mace. Don't turn your back to the mace. Don't turn your back to the mace. So all of us will need to take the new parliament through some very basic, routine, behavioral changes when they enter the chamber. But we are also we need to also help them in terms of which committee, when they are selected to sit on a particular committee. But they may not necessarily come with the expertise on security, on mining. For example, there's this group, the United Kingdom Ghana Gold Project, that seeks to understand and understand the nexus between Galamsey and illicit financial flows. So all the great work that has been done for the last 18 months, we've got to go back to the drawing board. So there's a lot of work with the 9th Parliament, coming on. But could you, if the projections are correct, because people are projecting, that the NDC might end up with an absolute majority. That is a potential danger to democracy.
Let's explore that.
Yeah. But probably before we explore that, there's something that bothers me every time we have an election, and that is this inflation in prophecies. People hearing God's voice and deciding who is going to win. And it's always beating me a little bit how God can speak to his representatives and give them different messages. So those who said, X would win and Y will lose, and if Y wins, then they should cut off their head and all that. I didn't know that God was in the cutting head business. So what are they going to tell us? But I saw a post in which somebody had written that Ghanaians use their head and not the blatant belief that when they entered the booth, God will hold their finger or their thumb and thumbprint. But I think this is something that we need to consider. And I think IGP Dampare, at a point in time, had warned them not to do this 31st December, prophecies. So that is, so that is that.
Yeah. All right. Now, of course, you've talked about how, if indeed the NDC ends up with an absolute majority, or a 2/3 majority in Parliament, that it's not a good thing for our democracy.
Yeah.
Let's explore that for a moment, because I know how many people hoped that we would never have a hung parliament again, because they didn't see the benefit of it.
No.
I mean, the best way to say it would be in Chi, right? We weren't able to figure out the value of having a strong opposition, strong showing of opposition numbers in Parliament. So everybody hoped we would revert to form and come back with, the usual majority in Parliament and, same party in the executive. Well, we've got that now. But you're sensing a potential danger.
Yeah, I'm sensing a potential danger. After the initial joy and optimism that a kleptocratic regime, vicious, intolerant of alternative views, desperate to use state institutions to destroy and to victimize people, has been brought to an ignominious end. I think it's also time already to be reflective of what this victory means for entrenching democracy and democratic practices. When you have a party where if the projections are correct, that can have 2/3 majority and basically says, look, we are not even going to ask you for your opinions. If you like, you can read the bill, and if you want to vote, you can vote.
Forgive me, Prof, because it seems that my colleague Blessed Soga has managed to get Michael Oquaye Jr., who of course is the NPP candidate for Dome-Kwabenya, the largest constituency in Ghana, where results are being disputed. Blessed, take it away. Right, Blessed, if you can hear us, please, we'd love to catch up with your interaction with Michael Oquaye Jr., so please take it away.
Well, Kojo Yankson, it's been over 17 hours spending time combing across the Dome-Kwabenya constituency, one of the largest areas in terms of the political demarcations within Ghana. And I must say that it's been a peaceful exercise, just to confirm that indeed we've been monitoring from the start. But towards the end now, it's becoming, tension is mounting up, I should say, between the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party. Traditionally, this is a known NPP safe zone. Just when I was speaking to the NPP's parliamentary candidate, he indicated to me in the morning. But as of now, the results have not been declared. And that's because supporters of the National Democratic Congress have massed up at the Coalition Center. They are agitated, indicating that their candidate has won. But there was a press conference hours ago by the executives of the New Patriotic Party where they indicated to us that they have some more pink sheets in their possession, which by doing their own coalition, they still believe that they are in the firm lead. And that's why we want to, get some clarity on this matters. Let's speak to the NPP's candidate, because we've not heard from him in a while. So let's find out what the situation is and what's accounting for this, tension building up within the Dome-Kwabenya area. So, Michael Oquaye Jr. is with us. Good evening to you, sir, and such a pleasure to be with you again.
Good evening and good day to your viewers. This is Joy News, right?
Yes, Joy News, right. When I met you earlier, you told me that this is a safe zone or safe haven for the New Patriotic Party. Has that changed?
Well, for now, we can see that the numbers have dwindled. It happens. You can win a seat by even 1. I remember someone winning by 3, and we used to call him MP3. So whatever the slimmest of margins, a win is still a win.
Do you believe that Michael Oquaye Jr. Is the one leading, or perhaps going to be declared now as the winner of the Dome-Kwabenya seat?
Well, as of the time where the EC officially stopped, we were in the lead, slight as it may be. But most importantly, there were a few matters that needed resolution. And this is where we are today with all this chaos. But I want to give viewers a brief narrative so that they understand what the problems are. Everything was fine. They finished the election. Everybody goes to their collation center. You start to get your pink sheets whilst you're doing your home collation. You gather everything to a certain extent because it's the biggest constituency in Ghana. So you need to gather your pink sheets before you move to the collation center, which we all got there about midnight. So we get to the collation center, everything is fine, all is well. But obviously, we want to be working on some of the pink sheets. So whatever batch we finished, now is midnight. We take that, they start the entry, and then we bring the rest. My pink sheet is my pink sheet. It doesn't change the EC's figures. It's just my verification of what the EC has. Around 2 o'clock, our team walks in with some extra pink sheets. Some people start protesting downstairs that why are we bringing pink sheets to the place? And we say it's our pink sheets. We can bring it in whenever we want. Nobody has stopped us from possessing our own. In fact, we can refuse to bring it and we don't have a case. We thought everything was under control. The people actually storm not the park, the inside of the collation center, snatch our papers from us and run away right in front of the police. I mean, can you imagine that?
But then I recall that afterwards.
So they ran away, and after an hour or so, the police managed to track them down after we virtually said, look, if they're going to do that, then we're going to have to truncate the process. They bring the pink sheet back. We don't get all of them. Fine. We are going to deal with the presidential. So we're dealing with it, and then the concession by Dr. Baumia is made. So we are fine. We understand in politics, you either win or you lose. When you lose, you make a lovely concession speech, and you wish the other person good luck. We are in the same boat now. If we lose, we'll concede and let Ghana move on. But if we have won, we don't want anybody to intimidate anybody, because they should rather than tell Ghana that if I lose, I'll also concede and tell my supporters to go home. That is what we should have. Now, the process starts, the concession happens. Then we're supposed to move to the parliamentarian, because the EC says this is of no consequence now. We can deal with it later by just tabulation. We said that's fine. just as the process is about to start, the NDC start protesting again. That if John Mahama has won, why are we dealing with the parliamentary collation and that they've also won the parliamentary? Is that how it works?
No. So I guess it's about numbers then.
So that is it. It's not even about numbers.
Yeah,
it's about trying
because
to
you would have to win with the numbers.
Yeah,
you had your
the process, which is not acceptable to us.
But you had your figures, as you're saying.
Yeah, we had our figures.
By
we are
what
not
margin?
Even talking about our figures now.
Right.
We are saying that the work must start. The collation must start at the collation center. Right. They have no right to tell us that the collation will stop because John Mahama has won. This is parliamentary. And there are many instances where a parliamentarian can win and the presidential candidate will lose.
Okay, but so that's why I'm asking that you have done your own coalition by now because it's been more than 17 hours. Going with your own figures.
I want to make this clear. I want to make this very clear because others have spoken. I also want to speak on the matter. We say no. So the process is continuing. We are leading up till when the process got a very long way. I'm talking about 85% done. 90% done. All of a sudden, the NDC say the EC say they need some extra material to cross-check a few things. So they talk to the MPP, talk to NDC, and we all agree that that material should be brought from the EC's premises. So MPP Agent 2, NDC Agent 2, EC representatives, and the police go and bring it. Can you believe that when we get into the car park with the material, the people over there say they are not going to allow any material in there, and before anybody can say anything about it, they grab the material, break it, and burn it. I'm sure you've heard about that. They burnt the ballot boxes in the car park. You saw it, right? When you got there.
You're telling me you are counting now. So here's what
you need to.
Here's what I want us to do. But ultimately,
I'm coming. No, there's a story to tell. Right. Yeah. I want to say that we can't have a process where when we are counting ballot boxes and we agree to go and bring materials, you seize the materials from the EC, public property, and burn it. That is not acceptable.
So let's talk about...
Wait, and after that, even the NDC chairman, so embarrassed, was coming down to find an opportunity to tell them to relax because this is legal. There's nothing wrong with it. Right. But he has been beaten to pulp. My brother, you need to let me tell Ghanaians the story. Right. He has been beaten to pulp and an ambulance has taken him to the hospital. Their own NDC chairman, a situation of Edroboni Biano, Ebibekawano. So this is very unfortunate. We are not happy about it. The process is truncated and eventually everything is calm. The police say they're in control. So we continue the process. Right.
I was just about asking about the numbers.
The numbers. I need to.
I see you have quite a lot on you.
No, I need to land. Mm-hmm. As the counting is going on for the final time, the NDC break ranks. All of them come upstairs, beating police people, beating EC officials, beating up agents, beating up even some of the NDC agents. Then they take all the material there and destroy it. Luckily, the EC went to hide most of the stuff. But everybody scattered, including the police and the EC. The police themselves, and we are talking witness, they had to pretend some people were injured to be able to escape. Now, we all left because the place was not safe. I am surprised to hear that the EC has regrouped without inviting us and telling us that the place is now safe, so we may come and we can tell them what we have to tell them. They are doing the collation with only NDC present. That is not acceptable to us. We will continue from where the issue was stopped when the commotion happened. My brother, do you think this is right? So we need to address these issues, that you cannot have a collation center where EC and police are not even safe.
Right. I was just going to point to the press conference you did earlier, your party held earlier. The indication was that you had done some, considerable number of coalition, which indicates that the NPP has indeed won the Dome-Kwabenya seat. That's what I was going to ask you about in terms of numbers. Do you have your numbers ready?
Yes, we have our numbers ready.
And by what margin?
NPP, but you see, one thing that we don't want to create problems with, we are decent citizens, is that we don't want to come and start throwing numbers out there. Because once you do that, then it means you've declared. But we have tallied and we have won. And not only have we tallied and we have won, we have tallied and we were in the lead when the EC stopped. The figures were about 50,800 and I think 32 or so for us. And they were also about, yes, about a few behind us. I don't remember the exact figures because that is not important. But EC have it on screen. And after that screen, how can they then go and add anything else? We will not accept that. Ever. In fact, as you were there interviewing them just about 10 minutes ago, which I know you have, I was watching on Joy News. They were telling you that they are tired, and if the EC doesn't declare for their candidate, there will be mayhem. They have no right to threaten anybody. Because when we got there, we came with our supporters, decent people, we came with some security. We didn't know that people were going to take land guards from all over the country, 500 or so, who are going to beat up police, beat up EC. Can you imagine if right now I also mobilize 500 land guards and they get there?
Well, we want peace. That's what we want.
And that is why, as a responsible citizen, I won't do that.
Right. So will you go back?
I won't amass anybody there. Right. But they have no right to tell us that if the EC doesn't declare for NDC, they will cause mayhem. What's the word we're using?
Will you go back? Will your agents go back to the collation center? Because if they don't go back, the process will be
No. Right. It's not if they don't go back. The process will be halted. The process will be halted. We have reported the issue. And we have been told, yes, the process is going to be dealt with. Why? Because the place was not safe. You know, when our agents, the thing happened and it started coming up, they told us that, you know what, under the circumstances, then we have to move everything in terms of the sheets, not the ballot, to the region and look at it. If there's any problem, then we bring a box. Because, you know, for example, if there's overvoting or whatever, that particular box will be looked at. Or under the circumstances that the EC's papers have burnt and some of our papers have been stolen, if we can't reconcile, then the judge will, for example, say, okay, maybe there should be a rerun of that polling station or there should be something else. It's not something I want. I want the way the figures are because we're winning. So let it stay like that. But any information that will give us to create amicable solutions in Ghana, we will do. So I don't understand why people are standing there. You say you've won. If you've won, let the EC do the tabs and the tabulation in front of both parties. That is what is legal.
And here's where some experts say the two of you would have to show maturity. Have you extended some, hand to the NDC candidate? Have you spoken to her just to try and find cool heads now?
Oh, I've not had the opportunity, but I can use your medium to say, hello, Elik Plim. I hope you're having a lovely day, but easy. Calm down. An election is just votes, counting, tabulation, and declaration. It's not the end of the world. If you don't win, and sometimes you can win by just one vote, you can lose by 2 votes. It happens to all of us. You know, I've been through a similar situation before, so I know how painful it is. That was my second time. This is the second time, so maybe if she goes through that, she must accept it. But we will not be held to ransom, and the EC must not be scared. In fact, one of the reasons why the EC was forced to start, they said openly to the hearing of others who were there that they are worried that if they try to transport the material to region, the mob will attack them. If you can't keep EC property safe, how can you even guarantee the safety of us if you even called us? And we will say, no, we cannot come now. It's dark, it's night. Keep all the things in the police station, and tomorrow put us all together in a safe place and we do the counting. That is what should happen. And that is what we're asking for.
You are a lawyer as well, so you understand, the openings within the law. The argument is being made now that the presiding officer could go ahead and do a declaration.
The district director has run away. Are you aware that the district officer has run away? He has run away from the center, and now it's his deputy who is taking that decision that he is going to continue the collation.
But I'm saying that within the opening of the law, that could be done. A declaration could be done, and you would only have
the declaration should be done by the district director. He's the boss. So why the district director, who is the returning officer for the parliamentary, right? But if even he cannot come there, he was there all the time. He ran away, and he's not back, and we are not there. And who is collecting what? I don't understand. That is not acceptable to us. So any declaration there will be null and void in the first place. They shouldn't put us in a situation where this has to go to court, because after declaration, there's nothing else can do but go to court. We don't need that. They should wait, let us all sit down and finish the work that has been done so successfully for over 85%. That is what we are asking for.
Will you ever go to court if it gets there?
Oh, but my brother, I mean, you can imagine if something is done illegally and we want to declare it ultra virus, then of course we have no option than to go to court. But we don't want it to get there. We just want elections to be won at the polling station and at the collation center. We have our results, they have theirs, the EC has theirs. Let us do the comparative analysis and let this thing be over. But we will not be intimidated by anybody to say that if you don't declare in our favor, we won't let you leave here. The EC should get more police. They must get men with hard helmets. They must get men with guns. They must get men with water tank spray, hot water spray, and go and keep Ghana safe and peaceful. Otherwise, whether now or in future, we will say that the police were not able to protect us like they've told us. Dome-Kwabenya has told us, don't go and create any fight, the police will work. What will happen? We have no choice than to mobilize. But I'm a responsible citizen, and I would not want to toe that line. But where my agents are being beaten and collation is being done in my absence, I will not tolerate that in future.
But I mean, to be loose about this, we're all tired, isn't it? We've been here for more than 17 hours. I can see that you've also been worked out.
Because even the election finished around 5 o'clock.
How long are you willing to go? Because everything is...
Oh, but come on, a marathon is a marathon. If that's what we have to do, we have to do that. Because after all, an election is not a sprint. So at the end of the day, it's not about how long the process takes, but it's how well it's done. And Dome-Kwabenya being the biggest constituency, things delayed. There's been more confusion. If the NDC didn't want us to have this situation, they shouldn't have mobilized. You know what happened? Sammy James said on radio and TV, I think even Joy, that all NDC people should mobilize at the collation centers. This is what has started the problem. So they should demobilize. And everybody should just wait for the process to work as long as it takes, and the right thing is going to be done.
And this might be the final one. How do you respond to the call that, how do you respond to the call that, well, nationally, your candidate, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has conceded? So that's sort of demoralizing the base of the MPP, and that's trickling down here. Because you see only NDC supporters at this coalition center. Why are your people not going there as well?
Do I look demoralized to you? No, I'm not demoralized. My issue is that we didn't want a confrontation because it's not in the interest of Ghana. My brother, if I go and bring 500 like land guards, we won't be having the 4 shootings you are reporting, would we? All because of an election? A responsible citizen doesn't do that. We expect the police to handle this. Pink sheets being stolen, EC officials and vehicles being vandalized. After that, they come upstairs and beat up everybody, and you want us to collate under these circumstances? How does that make sense? So I think that we need to sit down, and in any case, they should have called us, had a meeting with me or my representatives before the process will start. They have no right to go and start the process in our absence. That does not smell of fairness, and we will not accept it.
Have you triggered this to the national level of the New Patriotic Party? Because your General Secretary held a press conference, a couple of hours ago. Are there some, considerations at that level on what the next step will be?
Our party works in chronology. So we've triggered it with the regional. The regional chairman was there. I don't know if you saw him there earlier. The regional organizer also came to see me. So the regional level is aware, and I hope that the regional level will then move it chronologically to the national level. That's how the party works.
Going forward, there are scores of people within the constituency watching us now. What message would you like to leave them with as we wrap up this conversation?
Peace be unto everyone. By the grace of God, we have won, and we're looking forward to serving the people of Dome-Kwabenya.
And I'm grateful. We wait to see what the outcome will be. You see the supporters of Michael Oquaye Jr. happy and, of course, indicating that they have won. But we're grateful for your time. Thank you, Michael Oquaye Jr., for talking to us exclusively here on the Joy News channel. So we still wait to see what the Electoral Commission of Ghana will say about the situation within the Dome-Kwabenya constituency. Blessed Soga, and reporting within the Dome-Kwabenya constituency is over to you guys back in the studio.
Well, so that's what's unfolding in Dome-Kwabenya. And, I mean, Prof, you did make a comment about how this might end up opening a Pandora's box if the results there get overturned. But what we're hearing from Michael Oquaye Jr. is that he claims the process was never completed.
And it was just following the concession of Dr. Bawumia that things came to a halt. And so the results were never actually known.
Kojo, I find it extremely difficult to accept these new explanations about the processes of counting being halted because the presidential candidate has conceded defeat. That has nothing to do with the counting of the parliamentary ballots. Actually, even when he conceded defeat, if there were some parliamentary presidential ballots being counted, we need to get them counted for historical reasons and for analytical purposes and for policy purposes, in terms of what the parties want to learn from the stories the figures tell. So I find it quite difficult that ex post facto explanations about, somebody had conceded defeat and therefore we had stopped counting, and then we are coming back several hours later and throwing a figure of 50,832.
This is yet again suggesting a competence gap at the Electoral Commission.
An extremely huge, disturbing competence gap. Now, you remember there was a case, I think in the Bono region, where one of the officers was tearing off the sheets, tearing off Dr. Bawumia's, section of the ballot paper. Yes, yeah. And I think the explanation that the EC came with, which I found totally unacceptable, was that, these are people that we've just recruited and trained, but they are wearing your logo. They are carrying themselves as EC staff. So I've said this and I will say it again. The EC, an institution that I like very much because it's playing a very critical role. I mean, Jean Mensah and I go way back from the IEA days. Makes too many unforced errors. Because what is the basis? And I think Tema East also had a break in the counting. There's one of these Tema constituencies that also had a break in the counting. Tema Central, okay. Because what is the basis upon which EC officials will say we are halting the counting of the ballot because Dr. Bawumia has conceded or something has happened? I think those on-the-spot decisions that do not follow the script from the EC headquarters or their standard operating procedures, I think are all contributing to these challenges and misunderstandings and tempers, rising, and the violence. But I think former High Commissioner Michael Oquaye Jr. said two things that I find fairly disturbing if they are correct, and hopefully the IGP will get it checked. That 500 land guards have been brought to intimidate people. They've intimidated the police and the EC, and I think a ballot box has been burnt. I think it's important that we find or we determine how factual these are, because since the 6th, I've been telling people who make accusations to bring us some visual evidence. Yeah. Because we have a limited number of uniformed officers doing this duty, let's not forget that they have their normal routine duties. So the police officers are also quite stressed and stretched. That in making these claims that we should always provide some evidence of sorts. Now, 500 land guards, knowing their viciousness, would really cause some mayhem. And
So
where they
that's
coming
a specific number as well.
Yes, I mean, it's a very specific number, you know. And I doubt very much that if the police had been beaten, intimidated by land guards, that Dr. Dampare will tolerate it. You know, I mean, Dr. Dampare said something that I've been repeating throughout the period. You remember some 88 people were supposedly buzzed in to come and do whatever they have to come and do. And I think Dr. Dampare gave a very typical Damparist statement. If they come in or you come in and we catch you, I have a nice place for you to sleep. So, please, Mike, if you've got some evidence of this, you know, some recordings on people's cameras, pictures, please let the authorities have it so we can come to grips with what is happening.
Evidence is the name of the game.
Yes.
And that's what we do here at your election headquarters. And there's more of it coming up. Stay with us as these results keep rolling in and the analysis keeps going on here in our studios. We're back after these. And of course, this is your election headquarters. We're bringing you live coverage of the 2024 elections. And as things are unfolding, we're there for it all. Right now, I can take you to the NDC headquarters where the General Secretary, Fifi Kwetey, is addressing a presser. Let's find out what he's talking about.
To sometimes mass up in collation centers because of the real situation that have happened both in 2020 and beginning of 2024. When you've heard, for example, military people who were literally in various communities trying hard to intimidate our people, situations where because of the history of what has happened, they are in complete anxiety, knowing that anything at all can happen because in 2020, that's exactly what happened. Seats that clearly were won by the NDC. Before we realized all kinds of criminal things happened and results were changed. And from a position of about 145 seats that we clearly had won in 2020, it whittled all the way down to 137. So naturally, with that kind of history, you appreciate why a lot of our supporters this time around will be far, far more vigilant, would want to ensure that such a thing does not repeat itself. And we can give you that promise, and I'm sure President Mahama will be reiterating it tomorrow, that under our watch, there will be no need for one person to even, what you call, lose his life just because of desperation to hang on to power. So this very unfortunate thing, we hope to God that now that Akufo-Addo has finally reached the sunset of what I can only describe as a disgraceful presidency, the most violent presidency in our history, a forgetful presidency, we can put this incidence of people dying on election day, on general election day behind us and be able to move into the future with maturity, with evolution, knowing that the will of the people must be respected at all times. We do not need to kill each other simply because we want to hang on to power at all costs. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. We wanted to give you an update, especially on the situation regarding the parliamentary result, and also let you know some of the seats that are still not completely confirmed. And to let you and to assure you that even though there's such a massive two-third majority clearly that we have won, you can rest assured as a country that it will not be one that will seek to simply do things for its own sake, but one that wants to leave a legacy, one that wants to show that it is possible to fight for the people of Ghana. That is what this business has been about. And we want to again thank all of you for ensuring that the power of the people became massive and resonated in this election so that the whole of Ghana will appreciate once and for all that power ultimately belongs to the people. Thank you very much.
Right, so that's Fifi Kwetey there addressing a presser. I think we caught the back end of that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Thoughts before we move on?
Well, I think he seeks to reassure his people that they must continue to be vigilant, that they will be vigilant, that the mistakes that might have happened earlier on 4 years ago will not happen this time around. I would have wanted him, probably we missed it, that vigilance must not turn into violence, no shoving, no pushing, no insults, no taunting. You know, they should just be there to see that things are done properly. But probably he might have said that before we logged on to listen to him.
It's fascinating. I mean, there is already a process for vigilance. Every political party is supposed to have its representatives, polling agents, those who are supposed to be at the collation centers to observe these processes. When did that become insufficient vigilance? When did it become necessary for parties to ask their supporters to mass up as part of their vigilance arrangements?
Because, I mean, if you visit every single polling station, there are more than enough party representatives. I think there are 2 each who can do the vigilance work. Crowds increase the chances of misunderstanding and violence. And knowing the poor history of crowd control in this country, I will appeal to the parties and the constituencies where there are contestations around the results, that yes, whilst they want to be vigilant, I think it must be a limited number of people. Because I think last night, when they wanted to send the ballot boxes into some hall at Accra Academy, prior to the EC officials getting there, the hall was full. So we saw these officials carrying the ballot boxes and not being able to get into the collation center itself. So yes, whilst we want to be vigilant, I think it can be done in a manner that is professional, that doesn't bring anybody's life in danger, and that will also create opportunities for misunderstanding and the violence that we all don't want in these elections.
All right, Prof, let's look into the future. President-elect John Mahama has on many occasions said that he doesn't require any honeymoon period, that he's going to jump straight into things. He publicized this social contract that he intends to carry out within the first 100 days or so.
120 days.
120 days of his presidency. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the act of governance is by itself a social contract between those who govern and those who are governed. And part of that contract relates to the promises that those who seek to govern give the electorate, upon which, or that serves as a basis for making the choices that we do. But apart from the manifesto, President-elect John Mahama went a step further and I think presented about 27 points that forms the core of his social contract with the people of Ghana. So let me just race through some of them, just about 5 or 6 that are very interesting. One is to be able to finish the process of nominating his cabinet within the first 100 days or so. And he's promised that 60 people, and characterizes as a lean and efficient cabinet. Well, I want to say that lean does not necessarily mean efficient. That efficiency will come, although it's not spelt in the contract, if they are given performance contracted indicators, just like in every other sector. So we can assess these ministers by what they do and what they have promised to deliver, so that we have some benchmarks. Then code of conduct for all officials, declaration of assets, then a national economic dialogue, which I think is key. I think, yes, we wanted change, but we wanted change because the economy is in shambles. We think corruption has become a problem and the glue that binds this society, and we need to bring it under control. But he also promised to scrap certain things. The e-levy, the COVID levy, the 10% tax on betting. And I'm wondering whether all these things, particularly scrapping these, can be done when the transition team meets and they go through the books and they compare it to how much these income streams bring in. But of course, most fascinating for me is his promise to establish a women's development bank. That I think is really very key. He also promises to look at, investigate some of the things that have the corruption cases that we have heard. So the contract in itself is a promise to the people of Ghana as to what he will do in the first 120 days. But I guess by now they are saying, hang on, probably we need to disaggregate and have a hierarchy.
Should that be excused? I mean, coming from someone who has done the job before.
No.
Who has, walked in after, walked into someone else's, office and found that things are not as he thought from outside. Someone has been through that before. To make such promises, especially regarding the taxes, knowing the role that tax plays in, revenue and the fact that these taxes in particular were part of a budget that was read. And so the collection of these taxes are essential to the running of this government until the next budget is read.
Sure.
So as a president who knows it, I mean, if even I know this, then he has no excuse. He must know this. Can he be excused if he then comes back to us and says, oh, I looked at the books, can't do this one?
Yeah, so I think there's going to be a communication issue around how these topics are handled if and when he cannot deal with it. And my suggestion, looking at the numbers, is that yes, he may have won, he may have won an absolute majority, he may not need the opposition to pass laws and all that. And they realize the potential threats to democracy that I mentioned earlier on when, he said, okay, well, look, I've looked at the books and I cannot, really scrap this. But his real contract, the real contract, of course, is for the people of Ghana. And I'm saying that there's more than enough time now for his team to go through this contract again. And on the 7th of January, when he swears the oath and delivers his first major speech, look us in the eye and tell us the truth, shorn of any spin. Because the massive swing to giving him victory is a protest vote. And I think the message is loud and clear. And I'm not too sure how long people are going to have the patience for the usual, I didn't know things were so bad, so please give me time, all the money is gone. The usual thing that, people do. And I think he has just about 9 to 12 months to be able to pluck the low-hanging fruit and let people get a sense that their lives are being improved and that there's some light at the end of the 4-year tunnel. Because if you look at what happened in Tamale with the attack on the warehouse, and I think there are some attacks in some other constituencies. I mean, somebody sent me a video right now, but I cannot verify. So it seems there is some anger already. And as we discussed earlier on, victors are not those who cause problems in the post-voting phase. So if those who have won are rather those who are causing some havoc, then it tells you the levels of frustration in the country. And I think he has his job cut out for him.
Speaking of that, I mean, we've got a transition process coming up, and we've seen this so many times. During the transition, all kinds of revelations are made, and as the books are opened up, all kinds of accusations are made, and then there's no follow-up when the new party actually takes over. What are you expecting with the mandate that this party has been given? What are you expecting them to do differently?
Well, I think there was a transition team that eventually brought us a budget where the bill for the drinking of tea and the eating of digestive biscuits alone would have helped resuscitate the economy. So this time around, I'm looking for a transition team. I mean, the outgoing party had hedged its bets on Dr. Bawumia winning, and therefore there would have been a very simple, superficial transition. But right now with the opponent lean, mean, and hungry, sitting across the table looking to scrutinize the books, I'm hoping that it will be, very critical, serious, very well done, but also done in an atmosphere of collegiality. I mean, we don't need any hostility. I mean, the country is already on edge. People are unhappy. I think we've said enough to each other and about each other and against each other. So the transition team must be a period towards the incoming government saying that, look, I want to do things differently. I want to achieve results. This is what we have found. But nevertheless, we suspected we will find it anyway. And that is why we made the promises that we made. So I don't expect too many excuses. Because when you want to come into government, I think you have multiple scenarios about what you want to do. Best case scenario, normal scenario, and the worst case. So his people must be working out these scenarios. So that if the books are not as bad as they thought they would be, that gives them a fairly positive start. If the books are much worse than they thought, well, they are prepared. So I'm not looking for excuses. I want action, action, and deliverability.
Now, it occurs to me that even though Dr. Bawumia has been praised for his magnanimity in conceding defeat, the handover will not be from Dr. Bawumia to John Mahama. It will be from Nana Akufo-Addo to John Mahama. Are you expecting the president to be as magnanimous and cooperative as Dr. Bawumia has signaled?
I think he will be magnanimous and polished. I think we will see Nana Akufo-Addo who will project his old self. What people term as the president we never had, Nana Akufo-Addo. Suave, relaxed, and with panache. Because after all, what does he? He has everything to gain by being nice to the incoming power brokers.
But does he have anything to lose by not being nice?
I think so. You don't want, look at how President Kufuor has relaxed and is enjoying the breeze up in the hills, upon the hills, with his peacocks around him. President-elect Mahama has stayed in this country. He didn't go anywhere. And with the exception of one or two things, I think has had a very comfortable life. I think Nana Akufo-Addo, in a certain sense, has ensured that. So I think the two men must have a cup of tea. Probably they will drink it in bone china, as in fast food boys are used to drinking. And then have a conversation, because the signals that they send about the kind of relationships that they have going forward. I mean, the previous ones were campaign talk, normal, competitor talk. But now, Nana Addo is now an elder statesman. You know, he's moving to the sunset of his life. And I think we will all benefit from a friendly relationship. I think it sends a signal that they themselves are prepared to heal whatever differences and antagonism they had. And if they can heal and come to some acceptance around the harsh words they've said towards each other, then who are we, the two of us here, to say that we are going to continue fighting? So I think it's essential for the peace that we want that both men are magnanimous to each other, kind to each other, and respectful to each other.
Let's stick with the president for a minute. I mean, Dr. Bawumia, the vice president, is the one who lost this election.
Yeah.
But what was the role of President Akufo-Addo in this outcome?
Well, I think the wrong turns began several years before yesterday. You know, there's one thing with Nana Addo that anybody who has worked with him or worked with him can confirm. His extreme loyalty to a fault if he thinks he can trust you and you are for him. And for Nana Addo to pick a political novice whose family history is not MPP and to insist as candidate Akufo-Addo that this is my choice, and to be able to do that twice until the third time, I think, when they won, you know, shows that loyalty to Dr. Bawumia sowed the seeds of anger and frustration amongst the old school supporters of the party. And that was what brought this perception that the Nana Addo Bawumia ticket over the last probably 10, 12 years has shifted the NPP away from its core values. And in leaving that center-right space and making it much more personalized with new kids on the block who do not necessarily share the values of the Kufuor era, the Buzi era, the Roches and the Selbys, left this space for this revolutionary party to fill that gap. And we saw that epitomized by the kind of things that what they said to themselves during their primaries. And it was just glossed over. You know, okay, Dr. Bawumia has won, so we are now one party. It never became one party again, leading eventually to Alan Chemating's decision that this is no more my party. But there's a historicity to all this. I mean, the Dome-Kwabenya Dombo tradition, you know, are made up of people who are self-confident and sometimes think that they have a certain God-given right to occupy certain positions. So Oforiatta leaves the PFP, the Progress Party, I think, to form the United Congress Party or something. So there's a history within the party to people jumping ship when they think they cannot get their way. So the seeds have been sown for a very long time. So although he lost, yes, the handing over will be done by Nana Addo, but I'm very confident that both John Mahama and Nana Addo will find a harmonious relationship. Yeah.
Now, a lot of those who happy that John Mahama is returning to the presidency have said that he's learned his lesson. I keep hearing that. He learned his lesson.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, I mean, where did he go to learn this lesson, over the past 4 years?
Yeah.
But it does then raise the question of what will be different about Mahama 2.0. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my understanding of when people say he has learned his lesson, I think relates to, Mr. President, all the decisions that you need to make and the multiple competing interests that you need to juggle. And I think sometimes when you are in the thick of things, you really don't have that ability to pull back, reflect, put the papers aside, do something else, and come back. You are moving at tremendous breakneck speed to make decisions. And there are all kinds of interests. And it's good to lose and to take a step back and to say these decisions that I made and the advice that X gave me. I actually found out later that he had a self-interest in that decision. So, he's also promised us that he hasn't made up his mind about who will be in his cabinet. So probably he's waiting for Jim to declare that he is the president-elect formally, and then he will start the process. So I think when people talk about learning lessons, he will be more cautious in making certain decisions and also bringing certain people around him and probably demand more from the people that he entrusts in positions.
But he only has 4 years. There are those who suggest that since he's not seeking re-election, that he also has nothing to lose.
I think candidate Nana-Addo, my mother and I watched his last campaign in 2016. And there was this message that was very clear and resounded. And I think people really bought into it. That we will be D or something of that sort. Ghana for that this is a man, a self-made man. So he will be able to bang the table and say, that is what I want done. But I think what we've seen is that is the direct opposite. So not having anything to lose and not coming back might also mean that he has a laissez-faire attitude. Except he's driven by this desire to go down in the history books as something new and different. And therein lies the vice president-elect's desire to want to take on that mantle if the whole thing becomes a mess. But I think we just need to wait and listen to him, what he says, and see the people around him. But I am optimistic that he's learned some lessons. And those lessons might stand him in good stead, particularly in doing two things: the choices that he makes and the demands that he makes on those people. Because, this is an imperial presidency. And I don't know how many jobs he has at his disposal, but probably a couple of thousands. Filling all the boards and, MC, DC. It's a huge bureaucracy that he has at his disposal.
Yeah.
But he has a charge to keep. And yesterday when he visited his father's gravesite before he went to vote, when I heard it, my thought was, well, were you to win, you have something to chase after. First Republican minister, First Republic minister, you know, a government whose achievements have never been equaled, although people want to do all kinds of spin. All kinds of spin, but you know, so he's won, and I think he's in a sober, reflective mood. Of course, the hordes will be gathering around him, jostling for positions and for power. But it's the people of Ghana who will decide whether they'll be patient to give him the 4 years, or people will hit the streets making demands and telling him to deliver.
There's also the reality of Ghana politics, that our financing is shady.
Yeah.
And the NDC has been in opposition for 8 years. That's 8 years of somebody funding the fuel for their convoys and their buses and the T-shirts and the takeaway packs and the flights and the, I mean, it's a huge machinery, a political party, and somehow it has been funded for 8 years by persons unknown.
Faceless people.
Well, yes. Now, the president has 4 years during which these people will be expecting to reap their profits.
Oh, definitely.
At what point will the president even get the chance to get round to his own national agenda, if he has one? Bearing in mind the debt that he comes in carried on his back.
Yeah. Oh, I think that is one of the weaknesses of our political system, that because there's no state funding for political activities, and we also don't account for how we fund what we do, that opens avenues for potential corruption, for kickbacks, for rent-seeking activities, and actually, you know, diverts the agenda of those who come into power. So I think it's a Herculean task. And of course, those who have invested in the US and elsewhere, somebody invests $100,000 or $200,000 and gives an indication that I want the ambassadorial position to Abidjan. You know, not that the ambassadorial position will make up for the 200,000, but the title of His Excellency, Her Excellency on the card after service as an ambassador is what is then used for business transactions elsewhere. But here we want to eat whilst we are supposed to be building. You know, so we don't hardly put up even the foundation. You know, like termites, we basically just destroy the foundations that we are building because we need to reap what we have sown double quick. So that is going to be a big challenge, balancing the multiple individual and group interests against the larger interest of the Ghanaian state. That's actually what ought to be his primary call. But it's going to be very difficult. And 8 years, people are very hungry. They've seen how others have grown fairly fat. I see how some of my students have transformed or were transformed. You know, so well, we need to break this cycle somehow of placing the interest of the Ghanaian state at the center of our politics. Right now, we are tangential to those interests. We are only used as part of some vehicle, you know, for people getting access to power, and then they will distribute the goods to those who funded them to come to power.
Realistically, though, I mean, with only 4 years ahead of him, is he going to be able to break away from this vicious cycle you describe?
No, I don't think that is part of the social contract. That is not part of the social contract, and it's not part of the manifesto as a whole.
It never is, though.
No.
Never is, you know,
No.
the paying back of, you know, debts.
Oh, but
Never is.
I mean, as president, he has at his disposal. I mean, let's see how mining licenses were issued left, right, and center. You know, 2,500 and something in the last 18 months or 24 months. You know, so there are different ways that these loans can be repaid. I mean, the fisheries sector is one lucrative potential place. You know, I told you about this UK Ghana Gold project. I mean, the estimate is that artisanal mining gives us about 8 tons of gold annually.
Right.
Now, that's a couple of billions of dollars. The Ghanaian state can only account for somewhere around 1.5 tons. You know, so were you to issue licenses and 6 tons of gold is a lot of money. if you look at the fishing industry, with all the industrial vessels now coming in, you know, so things can be done and still whilst doing the developmental agenda for the Republic of Ghana, but it is not the best. It's not the best.
Yeah.
4 short years with a huge agenda, the huge agenda ahead of us.
Yeah.
Tough times ahead.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about what kind of opposition we can expect the NPP to be. I mean, we've seen them in opposition before.
Yep.
And we've certainly seen them in government.
Yeah.
This will be a surprise to many of them because I suspect that a lot of them thought they were still going to walk back in. How are they going to adjust?
Oh, you know, politicians have this admirable capacity to adjust, both in terms of really turning around what they have told you 10 minutes ago, hearing something else, and then reconfiguring the words to make you feel like you didn't hear properly. You know, so they will adjust very nicely coming back into Parliament. That is not where my worry lies. I think it's more the arrogance of their self-confidence that they were going to break the 8. You know, oblivious of people's suffering. The useless roads that destroys our shafts. The offensive misuse of money during their own primaries. I mean, Kojo, how do you distribute TV sets? You know, whatever, not air fryers, but microwaves, all sorts of things. Now, if you do that at the primary stage, then what will you do when you compete against your real opponent? You know, and I think it's CDD that has done some work with the Westminster Foundation about what it costs to decide to become an MP.
Yeah.
And actually to win.
Yeah.
So even MPs, those who are born, are seeking to recoup their investments. You know, so by the 20th of January, I think, without having found out whether they should speak facing the maize or to the side or backwards, I think they will all agree to sign on to getting the new V8s for a start. You know, so the whole edifice of our democracy is about people making these investments and having to recoup them one way or the other. So it's not just the president who, in winning, is in debt. The parliamentarians are also in debt. The NPP parliamentarians, they will adjust. Because as Honorable Michael Oquaye Jr. was saying, you know, you go into an election and you know you may win or lose. You know, if you lose, it's very painful because you've lost a lot of money. People are beating your food, drank your booze, you know, wear your T-shirts. And for me, I think the most fantastic thing about this campaign period was the last campaign where this lady was asked to name one policy of Bawumia. Wearing Bawumia's T-shirt, she lifts up John Mahama's thing and then says, Eyizu. You know? I mean, that is so hilarious. Yeah. So I'm hoping that I can frame some question of sorts for my poor graduate students.
Professor Kwetey, it's always a delight to have you, and we're so grateful you spent your evening with us.
Thank you.
It's been a great learning experience as always, and there's still more to learn, which is why I'm sure you're watching your election headquarters, and there's so much coming up. We're taking you back now to the Joy News studio where Evans and the team are ready to break these numbers down and tell us exactly how the thing is looking as the EC still stands by the fax machine waiting to be able to tell us how things have panned out in this election. Evans.
Yes, Kojo, it's been a fascinating listening to you and Prof, indeed, breaking down what has happened. And I see that he himself, all of us really, still reeling from what has happened, the shock of it all. I'm pretty sure it's taken a long while for all of us to recover. The spare thought for the MPP folks who are all coming to terms now what has happened. And Kojo, I don't know if you can see in the smart wall behind me. You know, I know you have one in front of you there, but it is really a green wave. You have to open up the map to try and look for the blue in there, right? The blue is somewhere there in Ashanti region. You have to really expand it to look for it. And I don't know if you have found a bit more than I have, but it's looking pretty slim and grim still as the picture fills up.
It's still much greener than blue.
Yeah. Are you finding it on your own tablet in front of you?
It is still much greener than blue, Evans. Everywhere you look, it's greening up much more than it's bluing up. And the numbers at the bottom of our screen tells the story even more clearly.
It has, because we're talking right now about what, 148 constituencies coming so far. NDC is in a commanding lead of 116, the MPP is around 32, and you've already been talking about this absolute majority, this two-thirds majority that can be the outcome at the end of the day. It is going to be one of the interesting ones. Just imagining that you're flipping from a hang parliament to an absolute majority from one, elections to the next. It is day and night, is it not?
Yeah, and Professor Enin actually describes this as a potential threat to democracy, which is something to really look out for, because at all times the point of Parliament is to be a check on the executive and the other arms of government. But if you have a situation where we had a hung Parliament, strong opposition numbers, and it yielded no results, there are some who have been looking forward to a return to the norm of the party that wins also having a majority in Parliament. But Prof. Enin says that the inability to have that strength in opposition at Parliament is going to end up a potential danger, a potential threat to the exercise of democracy in Ghana. We don't want to see an all-powerful executive bulldoze the legislature as well. So I wonder how it's all going to pan out. January 7 is going to be the start of something very different, very new.
Indeed, Kojo, thank you very much, and thank you to Prof and your good self for bringing us that analysis. And we're going to be...